Hello and welcome back.
From Brian and Chelsea
That's right.
to the Detox Health Channel.
You know, we have so many more of these health deep dives planned for you.
You do.
But, we realize you're busy and we don't want you to have to go through all the trouble of reading all these articles and websites.
Oh, yeah.
So we're here to do that for you.
We are.
And bring you the key takeaways.
Yeah. And today we're talking about something that you might have thought about yourself when you're making your meal plan.
Exactly.
Thinking about the grains.
Right.
Quinoa versus rice.
What's healthier?
And we've gone through a ton of sources, actually, to really unpack this.
We have a lot of sources for this one.
We do.
So yeah, by the end of this deep dive,
Right at the end,
you're going to know all about the nutritional benefits.
all the pros and cons.
Pros, cons.
All the key differences.
So that you can make an informed choice.
Yeah. Let's start by looking at just the straight up nutrition.
The nutritional breakdown, when you're comparing these two side by side.
Side by side.
What does it look like?
So we're looking at 1 cup of cooked quinoa,
Okay.
1 cup of cooked brown rice,
Yep.
and 1 cup of cooked white rice.
Got it.
Okay, so quinoa is coming in at about 222 calories,
Okay.
about 8 grams of protein,
Wow.
39 grams of carbohydrates,
Right.
and about 3.5 grams of fat.
Okay.
It also has a good amount of fiber, about 5 grams.
Yeah. And then when we look at the rice,
Yeah.
brown rice is about 218 calories.
Okay.
Little over 5 grams of protein.
Got it.
Almost 50 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
And under 2 grams of fat with 3 grams of fiber.
Okay.
And then white rice.
Yeah.
About 242 calories.
Okay.
4.5 grams of protein.
All right.
53 grams of carbs.
Wow.
Less than half a gram of fat.
Okay.
And only half a gram of fiber.
Interesting.
So right off the bat,
Yeah.
the quinoa looks like it has more protein
It does.
and more fiber
Pure fiber.
than both types of rice.
Yeah. And we can also look at the micronutrients.
Yeah.
So if we compare those side by side,
Okay.
quinoa tends to have more calcium,
Okay.
iron, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, and zinc.
Wow.
So for example, it has about 31 milligrams of calcium,
Okay.
whereas brown and white rice only have 5 to 6 milligrams.
Got it.
And then magnesium,
Okay.
quinoa has 118 milligrams.
Right.
Brown rice has 76,
Uh-huh.
and white rice has 24.
Wow. So, yeah, it seems like across the board,
Across the board,
quinoa really is more nutrient dense.
it is.
But, rice still has some advantages.
Oh, it does.
So let's talk about those.
Let's dive in.
What are some of the pros and cons of rice?
So for pros,
Right.
rice is gluten-free.
Okay.
Both brown and white rice are naturally gluten-free.
Yeah.
So that's huge for a lot of people.
That is.
But one thing to keep in mind is,
Yeah.
especially with like those easy cook rice packets,
Uh-huh.
you got to check the label.
Yeah.
Because there can be cross-contamination.
Right.
Or even added gluten in there.
So always check the label
Always check the label.
with rice.
With rice.
Okay.
Okay. White rice is really good for fast energy.
Okay.
So after a workout,
Yeah.
if you need to replenish those glycogen stores,
We're right.
it's a really good choice.
Yeah.
And then brown rice
Uh-huh.
has a lot more fiber than white rice.
Right, we saw that.
We did.
Yeah.
Which can aid with digestion.
Right, yeah.
And it can make you feel more full. So that's always a good thing for weight management.
It is.
And then brown rice also has a lot of nutrients.
Yeah.
Like magnesium, selenium, manganese,
Uh-huh.
phosphorus,
And then just a little bit of...
and then smaller amounts of calcium,
Yeah.
copper, and zinc.
Okay.
And then white rice is really easy on the stomach.
Yeah.
It's part of the brat diet.
That's right.
So
Okay, so there are a lot of advantages to rice,
there are,
but there's also some downsides.
of course.
One of them is arsenic.
Arsenic, yeah. So rice can have trace amounts of arsenic in it.
Right.
And the FDA says that for children under 6
Okay.
and pregnant individuals,
Yeah.
they might want to be careful about how much rice they're consuming,
Right.
because it could be risky over time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And brown rice tends to have more arsenic than white rice.
oh, right.
but- The good news is if you rinse the rice before you cook it,
Uh-huh.
that can help reduce the arsenic.
That's good to know
Yeah,
because I eat a lot of brown rice.
me too.
Another thing to watch out
That's
for
another thing to watch out for.
is food poisoning.
Ah, yes, food poisoning.
Now, apparently,
Yeah.
if you leave rice out at room temperature
Okay.
after it's been cooked,
Yeah.
it can cause some problems.
It can.
Yeah, it can contain this bacteria.
Yeah. Bacillus cereus.
That's it.
Yeah.
And if it's not reheated properly,
Right.
you can get some
Vomiting. Diarrhea.
Yeah. So the takeaway there is Always heat your rice thoroughly.
Thoroughly.
And don't leave it out at room temperature.
Don't leave it out.
For a long time.
Yeah.
And then another thing is type 2 diabetes.
Oh, yeah. So white rice, it's been linked potentially to an increased risk of type 2 diabetes.
Type 2 diabetes.
So one review of studies that we were looking at found that people who ate white rice more often, they had a higher risk
than the people who didn't eat it as often.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So these are things to keep in mind.
Right, things to be aware of.
With rice.
But now let's switch gears.
Okay.
And talk about quinoa.
Let's talk about quinoa.
So what are the pros and cons of quinoa?
So one of the big pros of quinoa is that it's a complete protein source.
Okay.
Which means that it has all 9 essential amino acids.
Wow.
So for people who are vegetarian or vegan, this is a great source of protein. And just like rice, and ours is also gluten-free.
Okay.
But as always, we need to check those labels.
Always check the labels.
Just to make sure there's no cross-contamination.
Right.
And another big benefit of quinoa is the fiber.
The fiber.
That high fiber content.
Yeah, we saw that it was higher than brown rice.
Even higher than brown rice.
Even higher than brown rice.
And that can be really helpful for maintaining stable blood sugar levels.
Yeah.
And it's good for gut health.
Okay.
It can promote the growth of beneficial bacteria.
Got it.
And it can help with regular bowel movements.
Yeah, that's all good stuff.
And it's a great source of minerals. Iron, magnesium, phosphorus, manganese, and zinc.
Wow.
And it also has some calcium, potassium, and selenium.
All right, sounds pretty good.
It does.
What about the cons?
What about the cons?
Are there any cons to quinoa?
There is one thing to be aware of.
Okay.
Quinoa contains compounds called saponins. Saponins.
Okay.
These saponins, they can be kind of bitter.
Okay.
And they can be a little bit harmful to the intestines.
Okay.
And even blood cells in some people.
Really?
If they're ingested in large amounts.
Wow.
So this is especially important for children.
Okay.
And people with tummy issues.
Got it.
So the key here is to rinse the quinoa. Rinse it before you cook it.
Before you cook it.
That's crucial.
That's crucial. Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about the nutrition.
We did.
Now let's talk about the experience of eating these two.
Yeah.
How do they taste?
The texture.
What are they used for?
Yeah.
So for quinoa, what's the deal?
So cooked quinoa.
Okay.
It tends to be fluffy.
Okay.
And slightly chewy.
Chewy.
It's got a mild nutty flavor.
Nutty.
If you don't rinse it well enough, you might notice a little bit of bitterness from the saponins.
Right.
And there are different varieties.
Oh, yeah.
There's red quinoa, white quinoa, black quinoa, even tricolor quinoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about rice?
And rice.
What can you tell us about rice?
Rice comes in so many different varieties.
It does.
White rice is probably the most common.
Yeah.
It's pretty mild in flavor, nice and soft and fluffy when it's cooked properly.
Yeah.
Brown rice has a nuttier flavor.
Right.
A little more earthy and chewier.
Chewier, okay.
Yeah, and then you have all these other interesting types of rice.
Yeah.
Like black rice.
Black rice.
Sticky rice.
Sticky rice.
Jasmine rice.
Yeah.
Basmati rice.
Basmati.
And our sources pointed out that Spanish rice and rice pilaf, those aren't actually types of rice. They're just dishes.
That are made with rice.
Made with white rice, usually,
Yeah.
And then long grain versus short grain, that just refers to the shape of the rice.
Got it.
Long grains are longer.
Yeah.
Short grains are shorter.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So is one better than the other in terms of taste and all that?
So one of our sources said that both quinoa and rice are great.
Okay.
They have similar nutritional profiles. They're both very versatile.
Yeah.
But rice might be a little bit better for sweet desserts.
Oh.
So like rice pudding,
you
probably wouldn't use quinoa for that.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can always experiment.
That's true.
You never know.
Never know.
Yeah.
So let's look a little bit deeper into some of the health benefits we've been talking about.
Let's dive deeper.
So quinoa.
Yes.
This is technically not a grain. Right.
Technically not a grain. It's
a pseudo-cereal?
Pseudo-cereal, which means it's the seed.
It's a seed.
Of a plant called the goosefoot plant.
Goosefoot?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's actually related to beets and spinach.
Wow. I would not have guessed that.
Yeah.
But nutritionally,
yeah,
it's similar to brown rice.
Yeah. Very similar to brown rice.
Okay.
So yeah, as we've talked about.
Right.
One of the big benefits of quinoa is that it's a complete protein.
Yeah.
8 grams of protein per cup.
Yep.
And then there's the fiber.
5 grams per cup.
5 grams per cup.
Yeah.
And that fiber is really good for preventing constipation.
Okay.
It can help regulate blood sugar levels, manage cholesterol, and it makes you feel full.
Right.
Which is always good for weight management.
It is.
And then there's all those minerals.
All the minerals.
Iron, magnesium, phosphorus, manganese, zinc. And then some calcium, potassium, and selenium.
Okay. And then there's also some new research suggesting...
Emerging research. Yeah, suggesting that it might be good for your gut.
Okay.
Acting as a prebiotic.
A prebiotic.
Yeah.
Okay, what about rice?
What about rice?
So rice is gluten-free?
Rice is gluten-free, naturally gluten-free.
Yeah.
Brown rice, in particular, is a good source of phosphorus, manganese, selenium, and magnesium, and then smaller amounts of copper, calcium, and zinc.
Okay.
White rice is really easy to digest.
Right.
That's why it's part of the Brett diet.
That's right. Okay, so brown rice has some additional benefits.
It does.
It can help with weight loss.
It can help with weight loss because it has more fiber than white rice.
The white rice.
And studies have shown that when people substitute brown rice for white rice, they tend to lose weight.
Really?
And their waist circumference also decreases.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then brown rice can also help with blood pressure.
Blood pressure. Yeah.
Okay.
So whole grains, like brown rice, they can help maintain a healthy body weight.
Okay.
They can increase potassium intake, improve insulin use, and reduce damage to blood vessels.
Wow.
Yeah, and clinical trials have shown that whole grain rich diets can improve cardiovascular health.
That's great.
Yeah. So brown rice is a good choice.
So if you're trying to choose between quinoa and rice, what are some of the practical considerations?
Practical considerations?
You know, you're in the grocery store.
You're at home making your meal plan.
Making your meal plan.
What are you thinking about?
What are you thinking about?
So taste and texture are a big one.
Yeah.
If you like one more than the other, go for it.
Go for it.
They're both cooked pretty similarly.
Okay.
You generally use a 2-to-1 ratio of liquid to grain.
Liquid to grain.
But remember to rinse that quinoa.
Rinse the quinoa.
Before you cook it.
Okay.
And brown rice takes longer to cook than white rice or quinoa.
All right.
Yeah.
What about cost and availability?
Yeah, so they're both pretty widely available in most grocery stores.
Yeah.
But quinoa is usually more expensive than rice. So if you're on a budget, rice might be the better option.
Okay. Yeah. So let's wrap this up.
Let's wrap it up.
What are the key takeaways?
Key takeaways for our listeners.
So both quinoa and rice
can
be part of a healthy diet.
Okay.
They both have benefits.
Right.
Brown rice and quinoa tend to have similar benefits. White rice is good for quick energy.
Got it.
So yeah, you should consider the nutritional profile, your own preferences, the cost,
cooking time,
all that good stuff.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
When you're making your decision.
Yeah.
So really it's not about is one better
than the other. One being better than the other.
It's about what's better for you.
What's better for you.
And your needs.
And your needs.
And your goals.
And your goals.
Yeah. So what are your goals?
Yeah. What are your goals?
How can you use all this information that we just gave you?
How can you apply this?
To make the best choice for you.
Yeah. So think about that.
Think about that.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you want to learn more about this,
make sure you check out the Detox Health channel.
Check out the Detox Health channel.
We have so much more planned for you.
We do.
So make sure you subscribe. So you don't miss out.
On any of the deep dives.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.